continue with the last talk of this session. Alicia Fornet.
I'll try to be fast. Okay. I just would like to do an overview of what we are doing concerning music documents. I come from the Computer Vision Center, and I would like to show what we have been doing with the musicology department of the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. So we all know what's an OCR. So we scan a text document, and from this there is an algorithm that reads what's there, and then we have a text file as an output. So OMR is optical music recognition, and what we do is just the same. We scan a music score, then all this is recognized, and then what we have is this kind of music document that we can hear, like a MIDI file. But what happens if it's handwritten, if it's not this kind of document? For example, here what we have is a big collection from the Liceo, that's a theater opera in Barcelona. They have about 600 works, and we are not talking about a 1 minute music. We are talking about an opera that can be for, let's see, 3-4 hours. So this is, well, if we compare with other theaters, other archives, so the idea is just to try to see what we can do with all this information. And in parallel, we also worked with Pianola Rolls, and it's this kind of piano that we have here with this kind of wall, and then the music is playing alone, let's say. So what we have been doing first with music scores is try to recognize as much as we can. This is work in progress. So we detect where are the staff lines, and then we can see which is the note. We can isolate the different music symbols. In this case, we are starting. This is quite difficult. The handwriting style is huge, and the variability is something that we are still trying to cope with. So we are just detecting the primitives, and from this we will create the different music elements, and then we can compare and create the different bar units. So this is something that we started doing. The second thing concerns the archives and the different versions of the same music work, because something that we saw when we were working with the documents that have at the Liceo is that they have different versions of the same opera. And then the conductor was doing some, the variability that he was just modifying because it looks nicer like this, or this is too complicated for the, the performance of my violin. So they were doing, modifications. Right now, I couldn't touch a note. If it's about Wagner, for example, I would be, brave enough. So, but at that time, 1 century ago, they maybe decided to do some modifications. So the idea is, instead of recognizing all this, since it's complicated, let's just visually compare. And then trying to align, this is from one writer, this is from another writer, it's the same music score. We have here the different bar units, and then we could try to align and see, come on, there is something here that corresponds to here, so please check this. So it's just detecting where the variations are. There is a third research line which concerns writer identification. Again, in archives there are anonymous music scores. They have no information about who is the writer. It's not there. The composer is not written anywhere. And they would like to compare the handwriting style. So these are the same music symbol. Let's compare among the different writers. This, and this is the same kind of music note. You also see that they look different. So the idea is to analyze in two aspects. First, specific symbols, and directly compare this with our database of what we have. And the second is more a general aspect. In this case is if it's slanted, if it's curved, so it's more like global information. So we compare all these, and then something that we could say is, come on, this input document looks like this or this author. All the rest are too far away from the handwriting style that it's in here. So at least it's somehow reducing the work that a musicologist has to do. And then the last thing that we are doing concerns pianola rolls. Only in Spain, the experts estimate that there are more than 10,000 pianola rolls. And the idea was to digitize them and also create some kind of MIDI file that we could listen at. And then let me show the system that we have been creating. Do we have audio? Yes, it's here. So we created a machine with a musicologist. So the idea is that we put the roll in here. We can see that the encoder, it's this kind of and then it's just moving in this direction, taking the different pictures, doing all this kind of collage, and then finding the different holes, analyzing all these holes. And the interesting thing is that in many cases this is recorded from pianists that were famous at the time. So whenever I press a key in my keyboard, it's like a typewriter. I'm creating a hole in the paper. So somehow from this, I could have a CD with the recording on someone at the very beginning of the century. So somehow it could be seen as a musical historic recording. So am I on time? So this is what we are doing. Of course, it's just a fast overview, but I think that's maybe later. Thank you.
A question.
I'd like to ask you were talking about writer identification.
Wait a minute for the microphone,
Okay.
for those who are not inside this room.
Sorry, I have a loud voice, but not that loud. Can't go. Yeah, I understand, right. So you talked about writer identification from the handwritten part. I'm wondering about sort of performance indication, because you were just saying that the roles were created by specific musicians.
Yes.
Can you identify sort of who they are by, let's say, the way that that particular music is performed?
Yeah, I was talking to the musicologists about this, and they said that since they can read what's in there, they can analyze the kind of endings that they use, the combination from the harmony point of view, and they say this is super typical from the late 18th century. It's not possible to see this before, or something like this. But this is something that we cannot do, since we are not recognizing what's in there. We are just comparing the appearance of the different symbols. And there is also something in this sense which is quite, interesting and complicated. There are copyists. So it means that the handwriting style that I have in here, it's maybe from the author or maybe from the copyist. But in any case, they said that it would be also interesting, because if I can tell them that this is from this copyist, they know that if this copyist was living in the late 19, I cannot have something newer than that. And also another thing that they said is that between the different opera theaters, the music scores were traveling. And then from this, they can know that this copyist was living in Milano, for example, and now this music score has been found in Madrid, so they know that this music score was traveling from here to there. So it depends on what are you trying to do with this. But of course, copyists are, for us, in case of anonymous documents and trying to see who is the composer, it makes things complicated.
Final question? If not, yeah. Just a moment.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. But there's something I haven't understand. But sometimes the mistake, for example, for you have a score from Wagner, and somebody is correcting something. Could be just a mistake by the copyist, because I was enjoying an orchestra, and sometimes the director was saying, "Oh, this is a mistake." Even today, she was saying it was. So, are you comparing the scores, or is not necessary for this kind of job? In case, just for know if it was a mistake by the copyist, or just a thing the conductor said, "Oh, I prefer to do like that."
Yeah, the musicologists that are working with the documents from the Liceo, one day were explaining something quite funny, and it's that they were reading what was in there, and then some section of the opera was very familiar, but not from this opera, from another one. And then he said, it's quite weird, right? And then he went to the diary of the theater, where everything was written in there, that day, blah blah blah, and then that day, and then he was searching because he had the year and the month, and there it was written that the opera that was planned to be performed in there changed at the very last time, and for another one which was completely new, the musicians had still not time yet to prepare all that, and then he decided to cut a piece, put another one, because they said, I am pretty sure that my violins will not play this. And then he decided to do a cut and paste in this sense. So in this case, well, he says that it was completely on purpose. So it may happen that it's a mistake from the copyist, or it can be, because, the show must go on.
Thank you.
Well, that's a nice ending to this morning.
Thank you.